Hello Unity developers, in this tutorial which is about the new Voxel Modifier version 2. This is the new Voxel Modifier which is included in the asset, and it was there for quite a while, but it got completely reworked, and in this video I'm showing you how to use it. In the new update you can see here a prefab called Voxel Generator Modular Recommended, and this prefab has all the functionality. So for those who are already used to working with the voxel generator, you may know that you probably have used the normal voxel modifier before, but this prefab here has voxel modifier version 2 attached to it. The functionality is the same. When I hold the control key, I can now subtract material, add material, I can define the target dimension, and also of course this version has a much higher performance and is much more efficient than the first one, and also it comes with a lot of new functionalities which I will show you now. But first let's show you the basics what you have here in order to set it up. First, the voxel modifier can be an individual object. As usually I have here a game object which is currently empty, so I will now add the voxel modifier here, and now I have the script attached to it, but there's nothing special, nothing fancy so far. So the first thing you have to check here to define is the targeting module. The targeting module defines which generators it should modify. Since this asset also has multi-block functionality, it is also possible to have here several modifiers applied to it. But for the sake of simplicity, we select here always modify, and then we define that this modifier should always modify the voxels of this particular voxel engine here. Here you can exclude voxel generators, but also you have here the option to change the targeting type to sphere cast, and then you can define here a sphere cast layer, and when it impacts onto a surface, it will figure out the according voxel generator by itself by using the sphere cast. But the disadvantage is if there is no surface to collide with, then it won't figure out which generator you're using. So we are not using that right now. And moving on to the next thing, we want to define now the shape. Here you can see as default is sphere selected, and if I increase the radius, you can see here that the indicator which appears. Also, if you have noticed, when I selected here the voxel generator, the block is immediately highlighted, so you can see that this block here is affected. So what I can do now here is I can set here the mode, for example additive, and I click here apply on world position, and you can see here that we have created here the sphere. Also there is a hotkey. If I hold now the V button, I'm applying it once, and it's even possible to keep the V button pressed and then now creating stuff like this. This is possible. So if you, for example, you want to place several, for example, I press this one, place this one, I can click. I have to be in the scene in order for it to work, and do something like this. So now this here we cannot paint like with the normal voxel modifier, because here we need a separate script which is Voxel Modifier version 2 Raycaster, and this is now implementing the Raycast functionality. It also supports game settings. For that you need a camera, an impact indicator, which should show in-game where you are aiming at, also the target layer. And now you can see here, if I hold the control key, I can immediately start painting. By default, left click is always additive, right click is subtractive, and middle click is move. Here you can see the painting key. It is defined as left control by default. It is also possible to change those settings here in the voxel generator settings, but I recommend to keep that as default, because as usually holding control key and being able to paint is the most convenient one. Also here in the targeting module, you can have the targeting type as mentioned, and here you can also change the box. Now you can see here a little box. I have to increase here the bounds. And now I can paint with the blocks. This exists as usually to create some block surface. And here you have also ellipse, so you can simply swap between those. Here you can have bounds of 100, 100. And you can see here the indicator, here is the ellipse. And this is the basic functionality of the Voxel Modifier version 2. And now we are going to investigate the big thing, basically, the big addition, what it can do basically. Here you have something called PostProcess Module. A PostProcess Module is a plugin, as a module, which basically changes the behavior of how the voxel should be modified. If I click here on the plus, I can give it a name. I can give it I name it, for example, texture painting. The name itself is just for convenience, so you're knowing to have here a name. And for that, we are going to switch to the first target dimension, just to show you what's going on now. Now we are now in the target painting. Sphere. The way we reduce the opacity, so it's not that strong. You can see here how now it's much slower. For the opacity, you also have the initial ID here. Basically, if this is very low, then of course the whole modification is very low. But we want to have it a little bit higher, so this is quite fine. So this is basically the initial ID. The higher this value is, the stronger it gets. But additionally, you also have the opacity as additional global parameter, where you can weaken or you can make the modifications slighter or stronger. Now, what do we have here? Now we have here the process type. Here we can select some models. You can also add here more than one, and I'll show you now the first one, between. What this does basically is that it only modifies voxels, so the minimum ID is between 0. Let me try it out. Let's see what happens. So now, for example, minimum ID is 0, maximum ID is 0, so I can't modify it. Minimum ID is 1. So I cannot modify voxels which are, for example, which are outside that range. Like 20. Look, so 20, I can only add 20. 20 is the maximum I have here, basically. I can subtract, so it becomes 0, but I cannot increase it. So if I type 15 or 20, now you can see here I can add material. I add to the value basically, but it does not get as bright as that white here basically, because the maximum ID here is 50 and 20. So if I right click, I cannot subtract it anymore. So even, for example, 200 and 100, if I want to remove material now, I can add, but I cannot subtract. Maybe like this. Look, I cannot get it now back to that background here. This is between. It clamps basically the possible values being modified between, in this case, between the minimum ID and the maximum ID. Next, we have a new functionality. This one is quite interesting. What this does is, this is the copy-paste functionality. I think I make a separate video about this, but here I have to select the target generator. I'm selecting that one. And currently, when I paint, I get here this message here now, which says no copy information selected. Now, when I hold the control key, I want, for example, select, I go back to dimension 0. I want to select this one here, this section here. I press Ctrl C, and now this green sphere appeared for a brief second. This means now that the material has now, the area now was copied in that circle. And if I paint now, you can see here how the structure looks like. It's very weird because it's the area which I copied. I can copy, for example, this small section and paint. I can copy this one. Now I paint blocks. Okay. I paint or copy this area. And the copy also works in subtractive fashion. So I can also subtract. Let's take some weird stuff, like let's copy this one. This. Then it looks like. I make a separate video now because about that afterwards. But with that you can copy and paste stuff. When you deselect it, you're losing the copied value. Sometimes you, if you change that, you're of course losing it. But with Ctrl C, now look how I'm adding the material. It's quite interesting if you paint using copied stuff in an additive fashion. You can create very interesting structures. I show it to you now with this modifier. For that I kill this dimension. Now it's 0. Now I'm going to paint a little bit here. Make the radius smaller, just for you to see how this is copied. always modify this one. Also when I click basically the stuff, dimension is 1. Yeah. Here we go. Let me kill dimension 1 also, that we can see the surface. Fuck, no, it's dead. So what I have to do now here, I decrease the radius. I paint some structure, like, let's make something funny. Alright, so I make curves like this. Now I take this voxel modifier, which has the copy functionality. Select this. But I need, of course, now I make the radius bigger. In this case, this, copy it, and if I paint now, you can see here the copied area. Looks like this now. Now with that I can paint the surface, which looks quite nice. Some bumpy surface by using the copied material. So this is the copy-paste functionality. If I disable it, of course, I'm back to normal. Enabling it. Need to copy the area again. Let me have it. And here is it back. So you have here many more functionalities here: hardness, indestructible, shape, fill, threshold, destruction, solid page, and but for that I have to create dedicated videos for that. This video shows you the fundamentals of the new voxel modifier. So you can here also you can play around with the modules here. Hardness, you have to define a histogram curve in order to define which voxels basically are more difficult to modify and which voxels are easier to modify. Indestructible, here you can define a dimension where you can see where you can define an area which cannot be modified at all. Basically, you can, for example, create a third dimension which defines surface which is indestructible. Shape fill, it's the opposite, that you can only modify voxels which are defined inside a defined shape. Threshold is for painting. I show it to you in a different video. Destruction is also something which where can create prefabs when you're destroying stuff. And also here the solid paint is when you're using Minecraft-like visualization in order to paint the surface only, basically, without adding new blocks. So I hope this small video shows you how to use the new voxel modifier. There are a lot of advanced features now here. For example, require voxel data, margin cubes offset, processing speed, which defines how fast they should be modified. And also here clean modifications, which are important when you apply rules. But for that there will be a dedicated video regarding the advanced functionalities of the new voxel modifier. So I hope you like it. So see you next time. Bye bye.